Do you think the future of these types of stablecoins based on algorithms is now dead?
I don't think so. I think just because one project fails, just because one internet startup fails, doesn't mean the internet doesn't work. So I would almost never say that it would never work. There may be an invention sometime down the road. But when you use one asset as collateral for a different asset, there's always possibilities of that depegging. But even if you use fiat as cash in the bank as reserve for a stablecoin, we have seen that the banks may take your money away. It has happened in USDT. They took $600 million away from them. So nothing's without risk. But can it be done well? Probably. But to do something well, you always have to be really well managed.
Can I ask you about Bitcoin? Because I've spoken to so many industry players to say, look, this crypto winter, we're used to the volatility, but when you've got the main cryptocurrency down 70%, it does tell you a story that perhaps there is something going on here. And there are some comments from Bill Gates that the greater fool theory, that effectively just flicking this coin onto someone else to buy, that they are the greater fool than you. Is there a problem with Bitcoin?
Is there a problem with stock markets, right? So Netflix is down 70% or so. Is that a problem? It's the same thing. In your market, you actually want volatility. If it just stays at one to one, who's going to invest? So in markets, there's always ups and downs. And we've seen Bitcoin go through 4-year cycles. Today, it's still higher than the 2017 highest all-time high. So is it a problem or not? It has volatility, but that's a feature of the market for price discovery. That's a feature for stock markets too. So is that a problem in stock markets? Probably no one said so, yeah.
I take your point on the trading window for cryptocurrencies and what that means for some investors, but what about the other side? Because here at VivaTech, you can see that the metaverse, Web3 are huge themes, and there is a real push to try and use cryptocurrencies as a stablecoin in future. How does that work when you've got so much volatility? It's impossible to transact in Bitcoin.
It's a point of view. There's a balance.
It's not a point of view. I mean, if I buy something today, it's going to cost me 70% more than what it would have a few months ago.
You could use BUSD. It has been very stable for for 2 years, 1 month, however you look at it. It has been very stable. There are stable coins that are quite stable. They are failed stable coins. It doesn't mean that it doesn't erase the fact that they are still good stable coins. So if you want to peg your value to US dollars, but I transact in Bitcoins, no problem. I just handle that volatility. I pay people in BNB whenever I need to. I just pay whatever the market rate is.
Where do you think Bitcoin is going from here? Is there any hope that it's going to recover some of its losses in 2022?
So with a short time frame, within 6 months, it's very, very hard to predict. I don't have that ability to predict. But if you look at the industry over a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 50-year period, let's look at 20 years. The technology is going to evolve so much. I think everyone's going to be using crypto blockchain technology in some fashion they may or may not even know about or think about. Today, when we whip out our smartphone, we don't think about, we're using TCP/IP. Right? So we don't talk about TCP/IP anymore. In the future, we may not be talking about blockchains anymore, or consensus, or nodes. Today, we're still building that level. 20 years from now, way more people will use this technology. So I'm still extremely confident in this industry. The technology innovation doesn't go away.
I want to ask you about regulation. One of the conversations I had at Money 2020 the other week was that the regulation in the sector is not a story for 2022, that's more likely 2024. What do you think in terms of how regulated your sector is going to be and when?
I think from our perspective, from my personal perspective, the way I felt, it was many of the regulators were looking at this industry very intently about a year ago. That's also, we received a couple of warnings, including from regulators from Italy, etc. We've now got an Italy registration. So we went back to them and said, look, how can we work this out? And we have. So I think things are changing. But this industry is so new. I think most regulators only have been looking at this for a couple of years. If you look at the banking industry, there's still new regulations being developed for the banking industry, 70 years after it's quite a mature industry. So I think regulations will continue to evolve. We can't expect perfect regulations in day one. As you said, what is metaverse? What about NFTs? How do we regulate those things? We don't know yet because the industry is not big enough. They're not quite developed yet. Well, it's still developing. So yeah, I think it will take many years for, even after 2025, even 2030, 2040, there will still be new regulations that will come out.
Big headline news in the past 24 hours that you're hiring 2,000 staff. I mean, the rest of the industry is cutting back, and that's not just crypto. Right across the technology space, you're seeing slowing of hiring or actual job losses. Is this just false bravado because we've got a market in turmoil here?
No, it's not. It's definitely not a false bravado. If we join our weekly meetings every week, we do the headcount. It's increasing by a couple hundred every week. So we have always been. Talent has always been a limiting growth factor. It's not the market, it's not regulations, it's always talent. So we have been fairly frugal on our spendings in other places where we don't think those are bottlenecks for our growth. So I'm not saying that Super Bowl ads are bad. I think they're great. They're great for the industry. Stadium naming rights are great. We just didn't do that. And we don't see. And in bear markets, especially with other companies laying off, now the talent pool is so much larger. It's so much better. It's so much easier to hire strong people. Before, when it's a bull market, everyone wants really high salaries. Every company is competing for them. Everyone wants to do their own startup. Everyone wants to issue their token. Now it's actually everyone's much more what we call level-headed. So it's actually during bear markets, it's the best time to hire people and do M&As.
Susan?
Yeah.